Human Resources, Social Engineering in the 20th Century. This is a documentary made by Scott Noble, and in it he's showing clearly the extent of experimentation, scientific experimentation using many psychedelic drugs, LSD, during the years after World War II, in order to understand the mind, in order to control the human being to be a resource for the country, for the governments, for the elite, for profit. And there was a number of pretty shocking scenes in that documentary. I highly suggest you watch it. I learned a lot. One thing that stands out in my mind is I learned that, the good guys and bad guys thing. I was definitely brought up, a child of the 60s, to think that there were good guys and bad guys. And I'm Canadian, but many similarities, and we're such physically close to the U.S., so many similarities. So we were the good guys, and the bad guys were over there. And certainly, the bad guys were Russian, in Russia, and the communists, and in Europe, the Hitler and Stalin and all this, and they did all the horrible things, and they did all the horrible experimentation with animals, cruelty, misuse of the life, for their own selfish reasons, but not us, not the Americans, not the Canadians, that we didn't do it. And this documentary clearly shows that that's not true. That as soon as the Third Reich fell, the U.S. Government and scientists were all over that, wanting all the information from the German scientists. What were they doing and how were they doing it? To control the mind, to have a resource of human beings, as human beings, to sit at machines, produce goods for profit. Now, that would be one thing if the profit was shared evenly. But no. That's good old capitalism. No, of course, the profit is not shared. The many are given the few crumbs, and the few take the spoils, of course. And this was their selfish motivation. In this documentary, another thing I thought was very interesting that stood out for me was that, two things. One, that competition actually impedes people. It does not support, offer a growth potential at all. It inhibits, and people, when they are tested, this certain psychologist, so many psychologists are interviewed, but said over and over and over again, same results, that showed that people that were given a task where there was no competition attached to it performed the task better, versus they were told that there's you're going to be tested on this, there's a reward and prize for the best, that they did not perform the task nearly as well. They did not feel free as well. They mentioned about grades in school, that the grading system inhibits learning, does not promote learning. Pass-fail would probably be sufficient. Pass-fail, yes, you understand this work, you can move forward to the next lesson. Well, that's common sense, that makes sense. But that specific grades and competition did not benefit. The other thing, specifically in the workplace, that stood out for me was that You know, the jar in the workplace, the suggestion jar, suggestion box, that kind of thing. That it's just a big scam. They found through experimentation again, different studies, and the ones I've mentioned are not the really cruel experiments studies, but I'm mentioning these because they stood out for me. So, you know, basically that it was found when people were able to, no matter what the conditions they're working in, they could be working in, being overworked, 12 hours a day, getting paid peanuts in a terrible environment in which they were emotionally abused. However, if they could get together as a group and discuss how they feel, discuss their emotions and feelings, and felt like they were heard by management, that this greatly increased worker productivity and worker satisfaction. They felt better. And so, did they do this so that, what they had talked about would be, changed at all? Is there any equality in this? No. It was just found, so they thought, okay, well, let's implement that then. Let's just make them feel like they're being heard. So the conditions in the experiment didn't change afterwards. Nothing changed. But they felt better. Just being able to discuss and felt like management was hearing them. And so even if no changes were made. So that's shocking. So that was implemented, and that's what the suggestion box is at the office. So, could you put a suggestion in there? Well, I suggest that there's equality within the profits. Well, of course not. That would never happen. Maybe even 10%, if you said just 10%, increase of 10%. So nothing of significance. Interesting, so it's just all manipulation. The experiments that I was mentioning were cruel. It was very shocking. Basically what they were trying to do, and they did do, was eliminate, make the mind a blank slate. So they could build someone up from scratch. And they did this in a very horrific, various methods, using shock treatment, various drugs, and would strip someone's memories so they could kind of rebuild them. It was unsuccessful. They were able to strip memories and leave people completely helpless. Many of these people didn't recover or committed suicide. And I would suggest it's ridiculous, it's cruel. The motives were completely self-serving, again, so they could kind of have a human robot. And this is completely unnecessary. This is what we are doing within a course I'm taking at Destiny right now. There's no drugs required. There's no cruelty required. All that is required is facing oneself and writing oneself to freedom in self-honesty, facing the thoughts, feelings, emotions I've had, and applying self-forgiveness and walking with myself, using breath, remaining here and out of my mind. So I do it. I am aware when anything comes up in my mind, becoming more and more aware, and I am able to stop it and remind myself how it is I want to act and what I want to do in a way that will be best for all. So certainly not for a few, but for all. And the last thing I wanted to mention about that documentary was at the end, basically they said, yes, this experiment overall was not a success, but they didn't need to continue because the television took place of the experimentation they were doing. of wiping the mind clean. So that was kind of shocking and a kick in the butt to me, realizing that this is true. I have been programmed largely through television and movies, magazines, but mostly through the television. Most of my personalities, although they came partly from when I was born and my parents and my upbringing, a huge part of my upbringing as a child in the 60s was the television. I can see many of my female personalities from the traditional housewife in the sitcoms. So please investigate this video. At Destiny, we offer a course, a free course, online. You get buddy support, you get support. So you're able to be speaking with someone in which you will learn about the mind and what is the mind, why are you the way you are, and how can you change. And it's practical, and you can do it at home. So please investigate that link as well below. Thank you.